Hey there, and Happy New Year from the No Flicks Given podcast. Just Peter coming at you today. It's January, so we're kind of taking the month off. We worked really hard in December to pull together a bunch of Christmas content. The holidays were intense, and January has been even more so. So we're all kind of running around doing our own thing. The biggest thing that we're doing, however, though, is getting ready for new episodes to drop in February. So stay tuned for that. They are coming, we promise. But we thought it would be fun to just drop in this feed the very first episode that the four of us did together. Before we were No Flicks Given, we were Give It 5 and Fix a Flick. And the Give It 5 boys had, Matt and Frank had just started their podcast, and we were kind of using this as a launch to help them out. And this was a really, really fun episode. We didn't know it then, but this was kind of unofficially the first No Flicks Given episode. This is Masters of the Universe. We hope that you really enjoy that. In the meantime, go and follow us on all of our social media. We're at No Flicks Given Podcast. I think everywhere. Certainly on Instagram. And then shoot us an email, noflixgivenpodcast@gmail.com. We want to hear what you guys are into. What do you guys want to hear? In the meantime, though, we hope you enjoy this blast from the past, one of our best episodes ever, Masters of the Universe, before we were No Flicks Given. Enjoy.
We often don't know how the story will end.
Let's make a film!
Film has its own requirements. We want to talk about them for a few minutes in rather technical language. Like this error in screen direction. This doesn't seem to be such a good idea. Maybe you've thought of making a film. But first, here's my crew.
We go. We started watching this last night. And I loved it like immediately.
Yeah.
Well, everyone loves it immediately.
Right.
Yeah.
I've never had the experience of going into a film because this movie is legendarily bad.
Yeah.
Made fun of on the internet, made fun of. I think it was very much made fun of I Love the 80s.
Oh yeah.
Either I Love the 80s or I Love something or Strike Back. One of those two. One of the great I Love the 80s series.
The VH1 series.
It's so bad it had a budget of $22 million and only grossed total in the US $17 million.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hence there not being a sequel.
Right. So like it's in the zeitgeist as a legendarily bad movie.
Yes.
But the first 5 minutes of this movie are kind of incredible.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that throne room set.
Yeah.
The one set that they built.
The one set that they built that they make the most out of was the largest set constructed in the last like 40 years of whatever I'm sure it was like a 10 Commandments set or something.
They actually had to knock down the wall of one sound studio to
Yeah.
combine it, make it like an extra large soundstage. Yeah,
Yeah.
And it was one of the largest sets.
Yeah.
Well, but like Skeletor's costume is amazing.
Oh, God, yeah.
His minions' costume is amazing.
Yeah.
Are amazing. The people that
all of the minions.
that turn out to be robots.
the stormtrooper.
The stormtroopers,
Yes,
yeah,
those guys are pretty good.
Because I mean, you watch, you're like, oh, this is a Star Wars knockoff, and then you're like,
Yeah.
oh, this is a kind of competent Star Wars knockoff.
Yeah.
like I can deal with the cheesy dialogue.
It's Star Wars mixed with Conan the Barbarian.
Yeah.
and it kind of works.
So this is the thing is that I didn't know the only things that I knew about He-Man were the things that I sort of absorbed culturally as I grew up, but I never watched like the cartoon or anything. Did any of you guys actually watch He-Man growing up? Or?
So He-Man, we were all born roughly in the 86 to 89 region. He-Man was huge in like 83 to 85.
Yeah.
So we were on the very tail end of He-Man fever. Like right before we were born, it was the biggest deal ever. I actually had a power sword or He-Man sword, like toy, like light up. It was like my first. I remember it's one of my earliest memories is getting that for Christmas, and then imagining the elves building it in in the North Pole. Like I was like, that was my first sort of like, wait a minute, this doesn't feel right. And so like Ghostbusters 2, when the Ghostbusters show up for that birthday party and all the kids think that they think, oh, I thought it was going to be He-Man.
Something's changed in the
It don't look good. Let's go get a beer, all right?
Like He-Man was massive.
Yeah.
It started off as a toy because as we were talking about off mic,
Yeah.
Mattel passed on Star Wars toys. and when they went to Kenner.
Yeah.
And when they were like, fuck, we've missed this massive thing. Let's just make our own. So they built this whole world around the toys. And then as they did in the 80s, they made the cartoon. And that was a huge deal. And then so in 1987, when I did a bunch of research.
Yes. I'm glad.
In 1987, when Masters of the Universe was made, it was sort of like peak He-Man. And it kind of sort of dipped off of
I wonder why.
Pretty much immediately afterwards.
Well, that's the weird thing about this movie is so little of it is from the toy line or anything like that.
So there's a reason for that. Because the movie studio that bought the rights to He-Man bought the rights to the toys, but not the cartoon. Because they bought the rights before the cartoon was even made. So they couldn't include a ton of stuff like Orko or Battle Cat or She-Ra or like the things that were really popular in the cartoon, they couldn't include it in the movie.
Because they weren't toys first?
Because exactly.
Okay.
Because they bought the rights
for
to
the
like specific characters on the toy line, and they were like, you can do what you want with that, but you can't really touch the cartoon because that doesn't fall under your copyright.
You can't use She-Ra, but you can use Blade.
Right.
Blade.
Not
my Blade. Not my
No,
Blade.
I know, not your Blade, but every time that Blade showed up on scene and like pulled out a sword, I had to just be like, Blade.
So back to your original point, Matt.
Yes.
We might not have had He-Man when we were kids, but we had the same thing. We just called it Thundercats.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
And it's exactly the same thing. That's what I came to discover. I was like, I always got like Skeletor and Mum-Ra confused.
Yeah.
It's like
They sound exactly the same.
Well, and
exactly the same.
I was laying there drunk on the couch yesterday like, well, it's because they're the same thing.
Yeah.
And I put together all the similarities. Anyway,
I watched him go Galaxy Brain in real time. Just
yeah.
like, whoa.
And probably all the same crew of voice actors too for the cartoon.
Probably.
Yeah. There's a ton of crossover between He-Man and Transformers and Thundercats, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Which the other thing too that we haven't mentioned, this is a canon film.
yes.
Oh,
One of the
yeah.
last.
This is speaking of the movie
Yes.
studio that bought just the toy line. This is a canon film, which for anybody who doesn't know is kind of notorious for their schlock. But the thing is that for 1987, $20 million for a budget is actually like pretty substantial.
Pretty
Yeah.
good.
So like they put a lot of eggs in this basket.
E.T. was 82 and that was 10 million, which was
Yeah.
small for the time, but still, just to put things in perspective. And Canon, this is one of the films that crippled Canon.
yes.
Okay.
There was a million reasons and they were on downhill for a long time, but this and Superman 4
Yep.
were their big budget attempts to gain notoriety, and they just both flopped and ruined the studio. Because what Canon did, their like business model was they would make super cheap movies that were like really easy thrills, like guns and boobs and any of that stuff.
Yeah.
They'd make
Like Terminator.
on like no budgets and just pump them out as much as possible. And every once in a while, one of them would be a hit and it would pay for all the other flops.
Yeah.
And
The
once,
Blumhouse model has been
Yeah.
today.
yes. And now once you try to like escalate that and have $20 million riding on one film, if it fails, you can't recover from that. When you're a small
which is
studio.
the equivalent of $60 million today.
Holy shit.
Which of course, because it seems that we all did our research on this one, this is what kept us from getting a Spider-Man movie until Sam Raimi did it. And,
Thank God, though. Can you
Yeah.
imagine?
oh yeah, a
This-
Spider-Man movie
yeah.
in like 1989.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, or right before Batman or something like that, and just see a canon Spider-Man just before Tim Burton's Batman comes out, and
Could
you're
you
like, which
imagine
one
that?
do I choose?
That like dichotomy between like what would probably be like a very bright and colorful like superhero movie versus
yeah.
Tim Burton's 1989 Batman.
Well, and that's
Yeah.
like if it's canon and like they pick that same like sort of crew. Like I was looking through, like I tried to figure out like what else has this guy directed? Gary Goddard. Pretty much, if you've seen an action movie from the late 80s, early 90s that has like a ride at Universal or Disney World, that's what he's directed. Like he's directed the 3D ride filming portions of that.
Is this his only film?
Just the ride.
Yeah, just the ride, not the movie. No, yeah. Yeah, like he's done Terminator 2, the 3D ride.
Right.
Like that's his body of work.
Wow.
Well, I think he got this because he was doing one of those stunt shows for like a Conan the Barbarian
Which
thing.
makes sense.
And they gave him this movie for it.
Also, his Wikipedia page says Gary Goddard is the founder and CEO of the Goddard Group. Not filmmaker, not movie director, not
Yeah.
maker of media. He is the founder and CEO of a company.
Yeah, which
Titles are everything, man.
Yeah, but and then the writer of the film, David Odell.
They didn't have a writer.
So his other credit that came to mind when I went through his brief filmography was Supergirl.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Yeah. So
makes
this
so much
is
sense.
this is the brain trust that was working on Masters of the Universe at the time, and this is also. I mean, I would imagine that at least a few of these dudes would be involved in a theoretical Spider-Man movie if it was going to be made by Canon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So imagine that.
But back to the movie. The first 5 minutes are incredible.
Yeah.
Pretty solid.
Like
Pretty
because the boys from Give It 5 are here. Like, is it too early to talk about?
No,
we
we can talk about it for sure.
Because my 5 minutes, my like proverbial 5 minutes, is about 5 seconds into the movie.
Yes.
Because for me, the movie kind of begins and ends in like that whole sequence right before they get sent to Earth.
Oh yeah.
That's the whole movie for me.
Yeah, the bookend sequences.
You can cut the rest of that shit out.
Well, that was the thing I was going to ask you, because usually when we do the 5 minute thing, we try to say when, like the proverbial one is when the movie hooks you and gets you into it. I'm assuming with all of us, this movie immediately just hooks you right out of the gate. So then the 5 minute mark for us should be when the movie loses you, because I have a specific one and I hope you guys have different ones. Obviously, it's when they go to Earth for most of us, but
Yeah.
But there's a specific moment when they go to Earth.
I have. What's yours?
It's when Courtney Cox and the guy from Star Trek Voyager,
Robert Duncan McNeil.
thank you, are standing over Courtney Cox's mom's grave
Oh God.
for like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And there was a moment I was sitting here on this couch. I was like, hey, Peter, remember when we were watching a He-Man movie?
Dude, it cuts between like two different movies. And really abruptly, where they'll just show that and then they'll cut
It's
to
like-
Skeletor on the
it's-
throne.
It's because it's not even, it's like a teen after school drama about
Yeah.
like dealing with loss and
Yeah.
grief and like wanting to move across the country and start over.
To Jersey, by the way. I'm like, what in 1987 is going to possess you to leave your fast food job before you graduate high school and then move to New Jersey to find another fast food job?
What, can I take 2 seconds to explain Courtney Cox's character as they've done with this?
Yeah.
Because they clearly are trying to do the like Sarah Connor, Every Woman, or Billy Peltzer. Like they're trying to make like a generic teen like person to follow. But she's moving away that night or the next morning sometime soon. She's moving away. This is her last night. A, she's working on her last day.
Yeah.
B, she hasn't broken up with her boyfriend yet, but they've kind of decided they're going to. C, her house is not packed. There are boxes everywhere.
Yeah.
She hasn't loaded anything up. Like there's a bunch of stuff everywhere. It doesn't make sense.
But she's catching a bus.
And it's the night of their prom.
Yeah.
That last one just completely throws everything out the window. Like what is going on? And I have no sense of like what she wants to get out of moving, because her parents are dead. And you're like, oh, well, you're giving this character somewhere to start from, and she's feeling bad. Her parents are dead and she blames herself. But like the death of the parents has nothing to do with what happens to her in the slightest. And how they died also confuses you.
But
because
Frank, if she hadn't decided to stay with her boyfriend, they wouldn't have just decided to buy a plane or fly a plane.
But that's weird. And that's weird. The dad is flying a plane.
Well, but we don't find that out until the very end of the movie.
Right.
I assumed up until the very
when
end.
she steals his plane keys.
Yeah. I just assumed that when they said they died in a plane crash, that like it was a commercial flight.
Yeah.
And I was like, at what point are you like, just it's a random like Saturday and you're like, yeah, let's just buy tickets to go fly somewhere today. And then like,
but so when Courtney Cox's character says no to going with them,
yeah,
do they do something different, or that was what they were going to do?
They were going to
go to the beach.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
She said, no, I want to hang out with my boyfriend. So they said, fine, we'll fly somewhere.
Yeah.
the guy has his own plane.
I guess he has his own plane.
Yeah.
And
yeah. No, that's
the story.
Dude.
That's what happens.
And then they die.
So
once
weird.
again, this is a movie about He-Man.
We haven't even talked about who He-Man is. Like, who plays He-Man?
Right.
We've just spent the last, 5 minutes talking about Courtney Cox.
Which,
Guys, I know
feel like-
there's a whole like mythology about a dude who's got this giant sword and he's like kicking ass and stuff. But Monica from Friends
she's
just-
really sad. and
she's hanging
gonna-
out with Tom Paris, and they're talking about how sad they are that that her parents died. Yeah, oh my god.
I want to do all the He-Man stuff, and that's what I want to spend most of the time
Well, 'cause
talking about.
that's
But
the-
before, I just want to get
No,
off to get off of this properly.
No, you're right.
You had your 5 minutes with the movie Lost Jews when they're at the graves. Anyone have a
Yeah.
different time when you're like, oh god, this is
Like I understood.
I do have a secondary one.
I understood that they were going to try to bring in people from Earth because I feel like that was sort of a trope of the time where they weren't sure enough in the property itself that they could just have an entire movie that's set in Eternia.
yeah.
So they're like, all right, well, we have to get like some average Joe people so we can exposition shit.
I
I think
they also didn't have the budget to set it in.
also, well, yeah, that was something I realized like most of the way through the movie where it was like they just built that one set and then couldn't do anything else. So they're like, well, there's some lots over here that have like town square America.
yeah.
Well, the sets and the costumes are gorgeous.
Yes,
Like
the costumes
every-
and the makeup are
Every
fucking great.
costume is amazing, and it
Well,
sounded like it was a nightmare for all the actors.
He-Man's costume's a little dumb,
But it's like
but it's
ornate.
also what
like
he
it's
looks-
detailed. It's like
Yeah.
really cool looking.
It's as accurate to the original property as I think you could get
right.
without
that dumb haircut.
Oh, so that would have been rough. But yeah, no, I think when I was just like, why are we here? Is when they find the key in the cemetery, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't want to deal with this. And it's like, and Robert Duncan McNeil's character Kevin, he's just like, oh, it's a synthesizer. It must be a Japanese synthesizer. I'm like, I don't care. I stop.
Yeah.
And like he goes to the music store and stuff. I was like, I understand we're gonna set up something later, but I just stop it. Like everything else, like get He-Man and Man-at-Arms and all these other dudes in, and like actually have them have to interact with this world. Like that's the part that I found entertaining about it.
So for me, it was when they all come to Earth for the first time,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and they're like, "Oh, a big alien is coming, and it's a cow." And I'm like, I don't want to do a fucking fish out of water. Like, you are competent in your own universe, but like every simple thing on Earth is just gonna blow your mind. That's not what I want in a He-Man movie.
No.
We don't need the Thor breaks the coffee mug moment.
No.
But also it's weird because the key is in the graveyard, but
Yeah.
they land all together in the at where she works,
Yeah.
like a chicken place.
Yeah.
And there's also free roaming wild cows because there was no there was in
Yeah.
a forest, so it's a wild cow.
Well, it's a free range restaurant, so
Is
they
that-
just
yeah.
have them in the backyard. And like once they're ready, it's just like, all right.
Why a cow? You could have done a dog and had it been this
Yes.
cute scene.
Or a deer, or whatever.
Anything.
The moment
Or
that
not do it.
now, I don't really have one because this is like a guilty pleasure movie. I know it's terrible. Every part of it is
Yeah.
really bad, even the good stuff. But my mark where it really loses me is when, first of all, we haven't said his name yet, but Gwildor.
Oh, Gwildor. yeah.
Gwildor shows
Yeah.
up
Oh,
in a
yeah.
convertible.
Good old Billy Bart.
Oh, it takes you that long for it to
that's
lose you?
Obviously, it loses you when you get to Earth, but like
Right.
you're still hanging on because it was such a strong opening that you're like, all right, something's gonna happen at some point, and then that happens, and you're like, oh, I get what they're doing here.
And
I
it
get
doesn't
Yeah.
run on hydrocarbons anymore.
We fixed. Yeah, I fixed it. Yeah.
So there's proof that this movie is cursed, and the proof is actually in that restaurant. Do you know what that restaurant is famous for? Because
I-
they shot it as it was a real restaurant that they decided to use as a location.
No.
No, and is that this? They changed the branding. I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Change the branding to make it like the Rib Shack or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Approximately 10 years later, that would be the site of the Rodney King beatings.
Oh my god.
Wait.
Yeah.
Wait. That's also so the bar in Terminator 2
Is also?
holy
shit.
right outside, like right there too.
Wow.
Where the Rodney King
Right.
meetings happened.
I wonder if they were like right next door
But
to
that was
each
the
other.
same night, the Terminator 2. They were filming the night
Oh.
that he was getting hit.
Oh,
too.
shit.
Yeah. But
It's canon films, man.
Weird ass.
I'd say it all goes back to Dave Goddard.
Yeah. Go back to doing 3D rides, man.
Gary
Gary
Goddard. Fucking Gary Goddard.
I mean, you know, he's
clearly.
Who is the only reason there is Eternia stuff at all? Because the movie was supposed to open with He-Man landing on Earth.
Oh no.
And you don't see like Eternia at all or any of the openings.
Oh, that would have been awful.
That would have been
Pretty
terrible.
much the whole movie was going to take place on Earth. But
Well,
he convinced them. I also love that we get one wide shot of Eternia that is the same shot they use 4 or 5 times in the movie.
Oh,
Yeah.
when Skeletor's making his proclamation.
Well, that's it too, because in that shot when he's like at the beginning of the movie, he's like talking to like the landscape is all battle
and it's the same 20 guys just
Yeah.
standing there
Yeah.
watching it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
The
then
national
later,
PA
those
system.
guys are still like the rebel soldier guys, the good guys have their hands behind their head, like they're being brought
Yeah.
somewhere, but they're still there days later at the end of the movie.
Well, it's like, guys, we have 12 hours at Vasquez Rocks. We have to get this all done. Like, just we're gonna do it, and then somebody's gonna paint Castle Grayskull in the background, and we'll be good to go. Any respite from spending any time on Earth for me was entertaining. Regardless,
sure.
just like anytime you cut back to fucking Frank Langella's Skeletor, just hamming it up and enjoying the hell
He's
out of it.
so the best part of this movie.
He's so
Oh,
good.
God.
And he loves it.
yeah.
Yeah, he actually
loves
still
it.
looks back fondly on
He
this
does.
role. Yeah, he likes the Skeletor role a lot.
Yeah.
And he's so good in it. But there's a lot of weird shots where he's talking right to camera, though. It's very strange. Have you noticed that? It's a lot of right to camera soliloquies.
I did find out today that he is credited for writing the line. The
loneliness?
The loneliness
Yeah.
is the loneliness of good is great as the loneliness of evil or something like that.
Yeah, and you're like, there's something there, but
It's almost
we don't
there.
have time.
You know that evil will always triump over good because good, is dumb.
It's
Yeah.
Frank Langella's Tears in the Rain speech.
Oh Christ.
But it says something that Frank Langella is the
best
is the
screenwriter.
cornerstone of he's the cornerstone of this movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it is, speaking of 5 minutes, it's like a full 5 minutes before we're introduced to He-Man.
Yes.
He-Man is talked about for
Yeah.
he's referenced.
Which is a nice touch. I like that.
And it's
Yeah.
a solid 30 minutes before they allow him to talk.
Right.
Well-
they shouldn't. But
He did okay.
Like the opening shot of the movie is Skeletor coming into the castle
Yeah.
with the sorceress being trapped in her Zordon tube.
Yeah.
Monica and Ross's mom.
Yes. Well, I actually really appreciated that was the fact that we start after this particular battle is pretty much over, and like Skeletor's won. Great, and that's fucking amazing. Like, instead of it having to be like some origin story, it's like, oh, we got to find out how He-Man finds his sword and everything else. It's like, no. Skeletor and He-Man are already fighting, and Skeletor just won.
yeah.
I'm okay with it starting sort of like in the middle like that, but it starts post battle when you would think you just start on this cool action scene of them taking over. They had the money for it. It's like what the idea is good, but they just start like 20 minutes later than they should have.
Well, that's the very Star Wars of it, right?
Exactly.
It's like,
Yeah.
the New Hope starts at the end of a big chase that you never get to see.
Well, until 30 years later.
Yeah.
40
But I
years
mean,
later.
even just like symbolically, like that
Speaking of
throne
Frank,
room,
Speaking of Frank,
that throne room is supposed to be like the good guy castle throne room. But because the bad guys control it the whole movie, it's just the evil lair.
Right.
When
Yeah.
you could have like started it with like the people in there being like, oh, forces are invading, like where are they? And you could even just do the whole battle in that room, but just have good guys there, and then throughout the movie it becomes like more and more evil looking because of, interior decorating from Evil Lynn.
but they only had that one matte painting, and they had to use it.
Yeah.
And which is like, I remember the first shot you see of Castle Grayskull when they're expositioning in the very beginning, where I'm going, is this one of those things where it's like, are we the baddies? It's like we live in the castle that just it's all like
always looks like
dark
that.
shale.
But that's the reason that it's called Gray Skull, is it's not like Skull or Dark Skull. It is supposed to be the seat of like all of the masters of the universe.
Yeah.
Multiple masters.
which I think is as a layman with regard to He-Man, I'm just like,
You did a deep
Right.
dive on the lore there.
A little bit.
I had no idea.
I mean, yeah.
There's
But what
there's
does
some
that- what does
hardcore
that
Gen
even mean?
Xers who
There's,
are
like,
just
nothing-
losing their shit right now.
nothing works with the master of the universe part of it.
No,
because
right.
like, what does that mean? I don't know what that means. Like, what can you do? You wear a chandelier on your head.
Which, by the way, like the Liberace stunt double Skeletor
Yeah.
outfit
Yeah.
is one of my favorite. Like the amount of time that had to go into just making sure that he wouldn't like be so top heavy he'd fall over walking.
Yeah.
I appreciate how
But it's
much.
funny because his clothes on his body are the Skeletor clothes, just in gold. But
Yeah.
the headpiece is like its own thing.
Yeah.
But that's not like a headpiece that the sorceress, who I think was the other master of the universe,
Technically,
is that how
no,
it goes?
He-Man, I think at least as far as the movie goes, I think He-Man is technically the king because his alter ego is a prince.
But they don't do the alter ego.
Yeah,
thing.
they didn't have the license
So
to
like
Adam.
in this
for
movie,
fuck's
I understand that there might be an explanation in the cartoon. I'm sure there isn't, but there might be. But
Yeah.
in this
It was a toy
world,
commercial.
the way I always read it was the sorceress was the master of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
and then when Skeletor imprisons her, he has to wait until the moon thing happens.
Yeah,
and then it like the moon looks at them and they're like, oh, you're sitting in the chair now, so I guess you're getting the power.
Look, I don't know. Did it sell toys?
No, it didn't. This movie did not.
Right.
Yeah,
But you could see that that's what they're going for. They're going, you can get standard Skeletor or super Skeletor.
Which I'm totally fine with that, but you make it way more complicated than it needs to be. With this moon thing, and then he's taking her power.
I
but
have
then
no idea.
you would think he would like gradually start to look like that or something. I don't know.
Well,
I'm
I
really
think I
trying.
heard-
really trying here.
Well, the other thing too is I heard that at least in an earlier version of the script, that Skeletor was going to look vaguely normal up until the very end of the movie.
Oh,
and
like
that
kind of
losing and falling was going to make him look like the Skeletor we all know and love.
Right. Oh, did everyone watch after the credits?
Yeah, did you see that for the Avengers? Okay.
Yeah. I can't even. That's the earliest movie I can think of that has one of those like post credits teases.
Yeah.
Nice
That
touch.
went nowhere.
It went nowhere, which I also don't understand how they did it because he's underwater with that makeup on, and he comes out like. How did that not run?
And they did it once, and that was
it's
it.
probably because it was like a big latex like headpiece that he wore.
But it still looks.
It looks great.
Yeah, you would think there'd be. I almost thought they
Scotch guarded him before he went under.
Yeah,
there was probably a ton of.
You can tell that he got water in his eyes though when he came up because he looks like a little a little dazed.
Yeah.
It's not the most intimidating visage of Skeletor.
They should have just done the shredder thing where his like hand comes
Just the
out.
hand.
Like that was big in the 80s, just the hand rising back up.
Yeah.
That would have been good. But I mean,
And we were robbed of a sequel because Canon folded shortly after
Well,
this.
technically the script for the sequel
got
I
turned
heard
into-
about
turned
that.
into a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie.
No
called,
shit.
Called Cyborg.
Yeah.
huh?
Oh,
Yeah.
I did not-
I haven't seen Cyborg, so I don't know how much is.
You haven't seen Cyborg?
No.
But all of those.
Were you ever 12?
No, it's 11 to 13. I had the same thing that 13 going on 30. The same thing happened to me. Or it was like big, but I just wished one more year. Like the smallest.
I wish I was a teenager.
12 seems really hard. Can I just skip it? So there's a big sort of like coronation scene. Skeletor takes over. He makes a hologram proclamation that he is like ruler of eternity,
Which is cool.
Eternia now.
Which is
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked all that.
Then you got that beautiful shot of his giant face in the sky and He-Man
Watching it.
Like He-Man's back to it, and you just immediately know.
With
And
the
like
sword.
that, that's good.
That's yeah.
The fight scene that follows with He-Man killing those guys is like
It's fine.
but
All
it's
of the fight scenes in this movie are not great.
Which is
yeah.
kind of a disappointment because it's one of those things when I think of He-Man, I think of the sword, and more often than not, he's shooting someone with like the sword just hanging behind him.
Yeah.
all right. I didn't watch the cartoon, and I don't know the toys that well, but were there a lot of guns, like laser guns? I didn't think there were that many guns in this world, but I think Star Wars just like bled into this a little bit.
Probably.
Yeah, well, like
There
Man
were
at
some.
Man at Arms.
Man at Arms did, but I thought he was the
always-
one that has the gun. Like that's his thing. It's not like everyone has a gun.
I don't know. You're asking
Yeah.
the wrong
It just
guy.
feels like if you're gonna have your main guy with a sword, it doesn't make sense to have so many laser guns everywhere.
Yeah. But once he started slicing into diet stormtroopers, like I was totally like with all the sparks coming out and
Yeah.
everything, I was like, oh, if this is what it's gonna be like, I'm totally in.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. Also, one of the first examples that I know of like shooting a fight scene close in, shaky cam style.
That is
Really
true,
close.
yeah.
Yeah. But I think it was because of the choreography.
Yeah,
They
exactly.
just had
Yeah.
to.
But like there were a few moments that's in the beginning where it was like really like gritty and tough, which I
Yeah.
kind of liked. Also, I didn't realize Peter clued me in on this later. Part of the deal with Mattel to do the movie was that He-Man was not allowed to kill anybody.
Oh yeah.
So all of the diet stormtroopers were robots, which is why they shot sparks.
Which is never really explained.
which is never really
No.
explained.
no,
which
but
is,
the stormtroopers they die the same way stormtroopers do.
well, they explode in like that green like mist, right?
well, some like the
No,
flying
who-
flying
one
ones
did.
do.
Yeah, when they got shot.
When they get shot, they explode.
Oh,
But when they get shot, they just fall over, and when they get hit with a sword, they shoot sparks because implying
It's just
apparently that they're robots.
But I thought
But
that's
I
just
also
what the
just-
armor.
I also just liked it that's how powerful the sword was
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
because that's what I assumed was going to happen when he.
Yeah.
I think he duels Blade, and they actually have a sword fight. And I was waiting for the sparks to happen. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, all right,
Yeah.
fine. This would have made things a lot more medieval times and fun for me.
They also never established that the sword has power.
Except for the
just a
part where it
sword.
gets like stuck in the throne.
Which I get. That's probably my favorite moment.
Yeah,
is him having to pull that out.
Yeah,
but,
well, that's when you get the I have the power.
but it doesn't. There's no power to it. Like they don't say this is the only thing that can stop him or anything. Like
they don't set it up, but I think they were banking on at least enough people to have like the basic awareness of He-Man, because like I didn't watch the show. Like I played with the toys maybe a little bit, but damned if I didn't get some chills when he actually pulls the sword out and says, "I have the power." Like for me, I was like, yes, that's what I wanted this whole fucking time.
It's also the only part of the movie where Skeletor's like electrical stuff feels
suddenly
like it's actually doing some damage. Like I can kind of feel it. That and when he fucks up Courtney Cox's leg, that was pretty.
That was weird. Which
Real
they
gross.
don't. You never see them actually fix or even like talk about how they fixed it. It's just sort of just like
It
Courtney
looks
Cox is
full
fine
on
now.
infected. Like it looks. It doesn't look just gory. It's
That's gonna have
just
to be amputated.
Yeah, you're
for
gonna lose that one. But yeah, and then they're just like, okay, go back to your home. I'm just like, so she's just gonna die now? What happened? We didn't even talk about it.
Well,
like, that was the whole reason we had to bring her here.
Right. Well, they said that the sorceress can fix it.
Yeah,
so.
but
whatever. Also, I don't want to. I guess we can get into the end, but
well, we've been
Gwildor has that one throwaway line where he's like, "Oh, I could send you any place, any time," and he just drops that in at the end, and you're like, "Yo, Gwildor."
Yeah.
Gwilds, what are you doing? You could have done. We could go back and like before all this happened and fix stuff. What are you doing?
But also the
Go
fact
back
that like
kill baby Skeletor.
Yeah. I really don't want to get drawn into an Avengers Endgame thing right now.
Yes, I know. So not to put too much logic on this, but he sends her back to before her parents are dead, right? Fine. But the cosmic key is still going to fly into the grave next to where her parents would have died. So the He-Man stuff is still going to all happen. But now the people that were involved, like it doesn't.
I mean, I really don't want to get pulled into an Avengers Endgame discussion, Frank.
If I had Sorcerer Supreme powers, I could draw one golden line and then another black line to explain, but I can't.
Yeah, how that is a completely branched off timeline.
Yep.
We can't.
Back to the Future rules, man.
We
But
can't
Captain America wields the hammer, though. So it's all fine.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing. This movie needed some Captain America wielding the hammer moments for me to be like, all right, it's fine.
What I kind of like about him pulling the power sword out and saying that I have the power is that all of that is implied by, and it seems like everybody that lives there kind of understands what's going on. There, as many, I know I fucking work here moments that are in this movie. I kind of like that all of that is left to the viewer's imagination.
All the fantastical stuff is like, I know like nobody talks about it, but we have to spend at least like a 5-minute scene on the key. And how it's like okay, fine, it's the MacGuffin of the movie,
right?
But
it's also new technology.
But it's weird because I don't even think it qualifies as a MacGuffin. I thought that too, but when I was really thinking about it, because it's not like Skeletor's after their key. He-Man is the MacGuffin of the movie. That's the weird thing. So there are two keys. So Skeletor doesn't need the other one. It's not like his is a fake or forged one. Right. It doesn't really work. He has a fully functioning key.
Yeah.
That he keeps. Peter's losing his mind right
I was going to say, my head hurts a little bit right now.
But they're not after the other key. So why is
it's
there a
only
movie?
because they can talk to each other and that he's just using it to find He-Man, which I guess is really actually the MacGuffin of this movie.
Right. Also, the character of Skeletor is really well drawn, and I'm not sure if they did this on purpose.
Yeah.
But it's also implied that he wants all of the keys because he wants to be the only person that has access to this technology.
Which makes sense.
I do have a line about that.
Which is the same thing as I want to capture He-Man alive, not because I need him for anything in particular, but just because I want him to be there when I take on the powers of the universe. I want to show him that I win. I want him to be there when I win.
And also show the people of Eternia that He-Man is broken.
Exactly. So so there is it's one of the best drawn I'm a crazy egomaniac villains that I've actually ever seen, because people around him say this is kind of a waste of our time.
Yeah.
and our resources, and he's just like, I don't care. I'm fucking Skeletor. I get what I want.
Well, that's the thing. Most times when they do that sort of plot line, you're like, why are people following him? It doesn't really make sense.
Right.
Skeletor is so charismatically powerful in this movie.
Exactly.
That you're just like, I'm fine going after this guy's goals, whatever they,
exactly. He's
they
fucking.
are.
He's legitimately terrifying.
He's really terrifying.
And when he shows up on his big ass boat, his space boat at the end,
that moves at the speed of walk.
But it's incredibly designed though. It's super well. It's super menacing. It's
one of the skiffs from Return of the Jedi.
It's somebody like they found Jabba the Hutt's skiff, and they're just like, well,
no, did they really?
No, I'm just because it has that same.
It's canon, so they could have.
Yeah, that's true. But the one thing was that I realized was that it has turrets on the sides and it has a forward gun. There's nothing on the back. So if somebody actually wanted to get to Skeletor, they could just like sneak up from behind. Because he's got that whole clamshell thing too. He can't see for shit.
Right.
Like,
yeah, at least throw a mirror on there.
Yeah. Like there's no
a backup camera.
Yeah. Like it's so for me, I was like, the design was very cool, but also there were some exploitable flaws.
I do remember being a kid when the very big portal opens up and all the soldiers start coming out, and so many of them come out that it felt like the Star Destroyer at the beginning of New Hope. Where it just like kept going, and then you see this thing in the distance with that like Holst music going. Where he's
the
just,
knockoff,
knockoff
Mars Bringer of War.
Yes. And he just comes closer and closer, and you just realize it's like they didn't really make it clear that Skeletor was coming to Earth.
Yeah.
So the fact that he shows up, it's like, oh, I feel a tone shift. Right
Yeah,
there.
exactly.
Like, really, the moment lands.
And
the stakes to get raised.
And weirdly enough, with those like Power Rangers villains that they sent to capture He-Man the first time, it is implied that this is legitimately fucking dangerous for the people of the town.
Yeah.
That Skeletor's in town.
Yeah.
Like if the cops showed up.
Can we talk about
which they never do.
Which they never do.
And there's
except for that one hardened detective
in Middle America.
Oh yeah.
The principal from
Captain Top Gun. Yeah.
Officer Strickland.
Thank you. Who is completely useless except for his like final redeeming moments when he just goes out when
starts shotgunning guys.
Yes, it's amazing.
It's fucking fantastic.
Oh yeah.
He's like, what are we doing here? Who are these people? What's going on? Nobody fucking shoots at me.
Yeah.
He's the perfect guy to play that cop too.
He is.
Yeah.
James Tolkien.
Yeah, James Tolkien.
No, he was great. He was great in it.
Captain of the USS Enterprise.
Really?
In Top Gun.
Oh.
Does that make him one of your captains?
Yeah.
Wait,
because the Enterprise appears in Star Trek 4.
In
so
Top Gun?
the CVN-65, the aircraft carrier. That's
Is
the
named
that's the
Enterprise?
There was an
I know there was, but I didn't know if it was in Top Gun.
Yeah, that's
so I
that's
thought you
the
were,
the
That was like
carrier.
the biggest baddest aircraft carrier that we had at the time.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
cool.
then in 1986, it's in
Oh, we're gonna do this. All right, let's do it. Let's do it.
And then in 1986, the USS Enterprise aircraft carrier is in Alameda, and the time traveling crew of the Enterprise NCC 1701 go back in time to save the whales, and Peter has taken off his headphones.
I'm just gonna go
right
get another
past
beer.
the altar, heading down the ramp, and out the door.
Shall we pause for a moment and re-beverage?
Yeah, totally.
Actually, just gonna let this keep rolling.
So I came back from I'm back from my beer run, and we're still talking about Star Trek.
Yeah, we're still talking about Star Trek.
Oh, okay.
All right, so there were more connections than I actually initially thought, because there is an obvious one, Robert Duncan McNeil, which we've already mentioned. He played Tom Paris in Star Trek Voyager, who was a main cast member. But before that, he actually played a character called Nicholas Locarno in an episode of TNG called The First Duty, where he plays a similar character.
Duty.
Yeah. He plays a similar character, and then they like adapted it for Voyager, but they didn't want to pay the writer of that episode like every time his character appears. So they're just like, let's just change his name and it'll be fine. So that's what they did.
Peter, sit back down.
Do I have to?
But the one that you guys I might not be aware of is Frank Langella was in 3 episodes of Deep Space Nine.
I did know that.
Yes. His character is Jaro Essa. And he's actually a pretty big wig. He plays a bad guy in a 3-episode arc at the end of season 1 going into season 2.
Is he play himself, or does he have like makeup on, or like a alien?
He plays a dude who just has like some makeup on his nose, so you know it's Frank Langella, and he did the part because his kids were big fans of Star Trek.
That's why he did Skeletor.
Yes.
Same reason. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he does a great, he does Frank Langella, so he's great.
God, Frank Langella sounds like a great dad.
Yeah, right?
He is talented enough where he could so easily be one of those like Daniel Day-Lewis style, like hardcore, serious actors who takes everything.
Yeah, but he's not an asshole.
He's not an asshole. And,
Yeah.
he knows he's just not above the fun roles
Mhm.
because no one really should be. And
Right.
it's just, he enjoys them. I mean,
Yeah.
your Cutthroat Island episode goes into a whole thing about how great he does.
He
with that
also
role.
loved that movie too.
Yeah,
he did.
but that's the difference between him doing that and Skeletor, and then someone like Jeremy Irons in Dungeons and Dragons, who's
Yeah.
just like,
Oh yeah.
just he's
Yeah.
clearly just getting paid and being weird and like kind of doing
Yeah.
like John Malkovich in Aragon or one of those like
Yeah.
Or in Man in the Iron Mask.
or Man in the Iron
Yeah.
Mask. Yeah. But yeah, he's so
Well,
good
it's
in
it's
this.
also different kinds of fun too, because I think Jeremy Irons
I
getting into a different
not
movie.
think he had
Yeah,
fun
no,
doing
Get-
that.
Getting, well,
It's-
getting into that movie, I think he was just like, "Fuck it, I'm gonna go as big as I can." But it's much more about him personally having fun than it is Frank Langella. Seems like he's having fun with everybody else making the movie.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we've talked about, this is our second Frank Langella movie on Fix-A-Flick.
yeah.
Both of them objectively bad movies.
Is it only our second?
I feel like, at least him in a main role.
Yeah.
But both of them objectively bad movies. Cutthroat Island, Masters of the Universe.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I think Cutthroat Island is a little more competent, and
Yeah.
I almost think it's good, but it's
Yeah.
just there's I don't know.
But-
what's
Well,
for
it's
little.
another movie that leans so hard on its design and not and tries to do like weird, funky things with its plot. And just
It's a
doesn't-
movie
I'm-
that was covered on Fix-A-Flick. It is not an
right.
Oscar
Yeah, I'm
winner.
splitting.
Right.
I'm splitting hairs. I don't.
That's
I
not
don't-
true. We've had plenty of Oscar winners.
I've planted my flag and I'm removing it again.
No, it's
so you can keep
so
going.
it's definitely flawed, has its problems. But and I think this actually goes to your point. It's fun.
Yes.
very fun.
Primarily because Frank Langella is having a great time, and that lets everybody else who is having a like you were telling the story of the guy that plays Blade having a really tough time in his suit.
Yeah.
Dolph Lundgren had no fun making this movie.
Yeah, he hated it.
But Frank Langella seems to have the superpower of infecting everybody else that's making the movie with like, aren't we having a great time, guys?
Yes, there's that.
We're playing make believe for a living.
And in both of them, he plays the villain. And in both movies, the one thing you can't say is like there are stakes. Like
Yeah.
it does
Oh, yeah.
feel like there is a legitimate threat
Yeah.
in these worlds.
Captain Dog is fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
Captain Dog with an AW.
Well, and
So
you
good.
know Frank Langella is down to clown because he was a voice in Destiny 2, and that's one
Was
of the
he really?
greatest games of all
Who
time.
was he in?
He plays the Council.
Who's the Council?
So he's Gaul's like right
this
hand
is our-
minion.
Yeah.
dude.
That's Frank
That's
Langella.
Frank
You
Langella.
know, the guy
God.
who played Blade.
He was also in Star Trek.
Yes, he played a recurring role as a Kazon Ogla in Star Trek Voyager.
If we're gonna have
You
movies,
can't win, Doth.
if we're gonna have movies where there's like 3 or more Star Trek references, I might give you your own record separately. Well, it's commercial break where you
It's
just
the
like
bonus episode?
with like this like fun catchy music in the background, like
Mad Star,
it's something like a
Mad
like,
Star Trek corner.
something from
Yeah.
like the Muppet Show.
Yeah, it's the Mike Stoklasa part where they just start cutting to everybody else just sort of staring blankly at a wall.
Exactly.
But yes, there are
Is
a
there
few
any
other.
more?
Oh yes, there's more.
Actually, you know what? For the remaining ones, let's pilot this idea.
Okay,
Yeah.
yes.
I want you, Matt,
Yeah.
to just read off your Star Trek facts.
Yeah.
We're gonna play some fun music over.
We're gonna play some fun music over it. And
Yeah.
we're gonna see how much we like this.
If, on our release, I'm gonna put different music behind it,
perfectly-
so people have to listen to
It's
both.
like Pokemon Red and Blue. You have to get the right version so you can. So Meg Foster, who plays Evelina, was the titular muse in an episode or a season 4 episode of Deep Space Nine called The Muse. She was in some makeup, so she's not as recognizable, but you know her because those
eyes.
her eyes are not like initially I thought they were contact lenses, but they
those
are
are
not.
real.
Which they work into the plot of Masters of the Universe because they like her description is just like bright eyes.
Right.
And then the guy who plays Blade, Anthony Charles DeLongis, plays a Kazon Ogla, and then we have Robert Towers. He played Karg, the guy with the mullet, but also the evil person
Oh,
face.
the grandmother.
Yeah, I gave the henchman. Yeah.
Lizard,
In Masters of the
Lizard
Universe.
James Brown.
Oh, I was
Not the lizard.
Oh,
The one-
Yeah,
the-
but James Brown.
one-
with the
Yeah,
pompadour.
yeah.
the one with the Angora shoulder pads.
Yes.
And the hair. Yeah.
So he played a Ferengi in an early episode, actually around this time in an early episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Can I ask something? Are there more?
That's
This stopped being.
I think that's it.
at all my podcast.
Welcome to Trekking with Connor and Matt.
God.
Anyway,
That Karg guy.
yes.
Does he have no hands? Is both of his hands
no,
hooks?
that hook.
Oh,
no. He
the
has
one
one
hook.
hook.
He
hand.
has a hook, but in his other hand, he's holding something that looks like his hook. So the whole time, I never got a good sense that he has hands at all.
like the character or the actor.
No, the character. He definitely has one hand that's got like a sharp thing instead on his stump.
Right.
There's the one. I only registered him having one hook hand, and then
Okay.
like he
Maybe-
has something that he can like shoot
Maybe.
people with.
Yeah,
But,
okay.
I mean, again, I am not.
Give us the hook.
God, we're getting there. But yeah, no, that's he was one of my. I enjoyed him.
He sounds good.
henchman.
I thought the makeup was very weird, and he doesn't ever do anything at all.
Well, because he's a useless henchman, but they all are except for pretty much Evelina and Skeletor.
Which her name is Evelina. Lena.
Uh-huh.
Evil
Once
Lynn.
again,
Evil Lynn.
right,
Oh,
yes,
Evelyn, I'm
Evil
sorry.
Lynn.
It's okay.
And also, how did a whole universe get started around somebody with the name He-Man?
Here we go. All right.
Look, I know.
In the beginning,
Right.
Yeah,
In the beginning, there was Conan.
well,
it was a period of civil war.
I want to sit in that boardroom where they came up with that
But
and
so
be
that-
like,
that's the-
really, guys, we're doing this.
That's the thing
He-Man.
with He-Man and Masters Universe. The original idea was he's just a regular guy, Prince Adam, who when he said, and if anyone
Yeah.
knows better, tell me I might get this
Well,
wrong.
that's the cartoon.
so he said, but he picks up the sword and he says, "I have the power."
right,
And he Shazams
Right.
into He-Man,
right,
who looks identical to him, but-
just jacked in without a shirt.
Yes. So He-Man, it's okay that you're not born with the name He-Man. It doesn't make sense
Yeah,
to
but-
just
yeah.
be
But
He-Man.
that
As a
was not the
hero.
concept when the character was created as an action figure. They were just like, we need a series of figures and then we'll figure out the story afterwards.
Yeah, what's this
His
guy's
name is He-Man.
Is He-Man, was that a term meaning like a strong guy?
yeah,
before
that, I
this?
mean,
that was
like they would have like He-Man competitions that were like bodybuilding.
Oh, yeah, well,
competitions.
yeah,
and
like
from-
Superman was a term
Yeah.
for like a strong guy.
Yeah.
the
In, like,
Little Rascals, the He-Man Woman Haters Club.
exactly. Yeah.
Huh.
Okay.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense now.
Yeah.
Speaking of He-Man, we've been talking for almost an hour about a He-Man movie, and not
Yeah.
once have we discussed He-Man. We've
Yeah.
discussed him as a MacGuffin.
As a concept.
Yeah. We've discussed, his initial appearance, but I'm just going to throw my take in at the moment.
please. Yeah.
He is the least charismatic movie
yeah.
lead in the history of movie leads.
He's not the protagonist.
No, he's
No.
not. Skeletor is the protagonist.
Yeah.
he is.
Skeletor is a protagonist. He's
And also for the first 2/3 of the movie, Courtney Cox's character is kind
Yeah.
of the protagonist
Yes.
until she's completely written out.
she's just she's not a protagonist because she
Right.
doesn't want anything.
Right.
No, she wants
No,
to
she
move
wants to
across
move
the
to New
country.
Jersey.
Right,
Frank.
but she says that in the first scene, and then it's never like, oh my god, I gotta save you guys quickly because then I
Right.
gotta get your bus. Like it stops being about that.
Right.
immediately.
Well, and then she gets hypnoptized and steals the key. And
Well,
Dude, that was weird.
they keep on trying to vacillate. Again, I'm trying to talk about He-Man, but here we are talking about fucking Courtney Cox.
yeah.
There's nothing to
That's the problem. He's not like he just showed he doesn't change as a character. He doesn't like really have like the one trial he has is when he's like enslaved by Skeletor at the
Yeah.
very end. Everybody else has some fairly major character changing moments.
Yeah.
He does not.
James Tolkien's character just decides to live in Eternia and is
like
given a harem.
pin.
Like
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And Gwildor gets those bows in his beard.
Yeah.
It's all weird.
But like all the other characters kind of like have moments where they kind of change or they learn something, and He-Man is just fucking
my
He-Man.
favorite moment is when they're getting ready to have the battle of the music store.
Yeah.
And it's him and Man at Arms just like up against a stack of speakers. Like,
yeah.
so here we are again.
Mm-hmm.
And like there's some charisma. Oh, there was like they miss us. They want to come hang out with us.
Dude, Man at Arms is fucking great.
Yeah, he's my
He nailed he plays every line so perfectly.
Oh, yeah.
Like I believe him.
Oh, especially when they're eating the ribs,
I love
and for
that.
some reason in Eternity you don't eat animals.
yeah. They're all
Except for
vegetarian.
him.
Except for him, he's just like, no, it tastes good. This is fine.
Yeah, well, it's something he's like when you're in a war, like you don't ask questions or something
Yeah,
about that.
yeah,
Like his
yeah.
whole thing.
So
about
he
eating the rib-
basically is a cannibal equivalent in
Oh
Eternity.
yeah, it was
Law.
like there's that like one little backstory. He's like 30 days without rations.
Yeah.
in this planet of eternal war, I guess. Yeah, it's so good. He's so good. And
He is
again, we're
great.
not talking about He-Man.
in his
I was
proto.
gonna say you were
Let's bring it
trying to
back.
talk. Can we talk about He-Man, just the character of He-Man, for 5 minutes?
All right,
That's the challenge.
Here's,
All right,
what,
all right,
here's what we're
start
gonna
the-
do.
start the clock.
I'm gonna keep every time we pull off a He-Man, I'm gonna try to bring it back for us.
Okay, all right.
So
all right, all
let's
right.
let's go back. So He-Man.
So
He-Man.
He-Man, on the theme of the first 5 minutes, one of the first times that this movie loses me is during the reveal of He-Man.
Really?
The very first.
The very first reveal, because up until that point, everybody's in sort of like space armor and really intricately crafted costumes,
Yeah.
and they look like they're part of the world. And then you cut to a guy in a leather bikini, with his like
Tanned and oiled up.
tan and oiled up, with his
His skin does not look real.
does not look real, and he's got a cape.
Yeah.
Which in a movie with a lot of great cape work, not a particularly imposing cape.
Which he loses it like
He
towards
keeps taking it off.
Yeah.
he,
But
he
keeps the
takes it off
shoulder
from
pads.
he keeps the shoulder pads, but there are moments where he takes the cape off to go to battle.
Yeah.
And there's one point in the movie where they actually show it, where
Yeah.
he like takes the cape off and hands it off. He's like, keep this.
Yeah.
I'm going to go into battle now.
It's like Optimus Prime's truck trailer. It just kind of disappears when it's time to
Right,
fight.
but he's just a character they keep around for action scenes, like when
Yeah.
he steals the flying skateboard thing.
Yeah,
And suddenly it's Escape from LA.
Yeah, well, that's a really cool scene.
Yeah.
He's not there to move the plot along.
No.
He's there
No.
to solve problems when they come up, and then let everyone else handle the heavy work.
But
of
that's the
plot. and character
thing that
development.
could be cool if he's
Yeah.
the only guy. You were saying how he doesn't change, which
Yeah.
could work if he's the guy who helps solve all the other problems
Yeah.
by his actions and stuff.
Yeah.
The problem is he's not that. He's not anything. He's
Right.
just the strong guy who says the least because he barely spoke English at this time. And then he just fights the bad guy at the
Yeah.
end. And that's it.
and hugs Courtney Cox a lot. Like they just met,
Yeah.
but I'm going to cover those moments are actually pretty sweet where he comes off as like a genuinely caring kind of hero thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and if that was kind of that's the thing. He-Man should have been a sidekick.
To who?
I don't know.
Man-at-Arms?
Somebody
Anyone.
else. Yeah, like if like I don't want to get into the fix-a-flick territory too soon.
Oh,
Right.
I just came up with some good ideas.
But if,
I've been
We're
getting
all-
some.
we're- yeah.
but if Man at Arms had been like the leader of this group and He-Man was just
Oh, people wouldn't like that.
He was
though.
the tank.
I get.
yeah,
I get,
he was
yeah.
the tank.
I get it
basically.
makes more sense in the movie and what you had to work with,
Yeah.
but people would have freaked out if He-Man wasn't like
right.
the main.
Which I think was the
Push.
problem was like you cast Dolph Lundgren in it's his second film role. He's only just played the Russian in Rocky 4.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
he's
And, like,
Swedish.
He's sweet, which is fine. And the other thing, like whatever about him not knowing the language very well, the dude has like some degree in theoretical physics. But
Yeah.
He's a very smart guy.
Yeah. No, he's great.
This movie
And I-
makes him seem like such a dummy.
Yeah, it feels very much like when Arnold Schwarzenegger did that Hercules movie as one of his first roles, where they just
Yeah.
dubbed over his voice because like we're not dealing.
So
with
the
this.
original plan was to dub over his voice.
Okay.
But in his contract, it said that he would have the right to do a first pass of ADR once the film was completed. But the film was so late and over budget because it actually wasn't late. It was actually running on time, but the Canon
studio.
was having financial troubles. And
Yeah.
they tried to actually shut down shooting 3 days before they were supposed to. So they had no money to like go back and overdub. But I still think he did a pretty good job for his speaking parts.
it was
He-
fine, but he's
yeah.
not. He doesn't.
He's got no charisma in the role, and
No,
he's
no
had
charisma.
charisma
Yeah.
The
since
thing
then.
is, he does though.
in real life.
At the end when he's getting whipped and he's
Oh, yeah.
he's standing up to Skeletor in the space, And when he grabs the power sword and says, I have the power.
When they are talking to each other right before the actual battle, that's the only time he's pulling off what he's trying to pull off. And
Exactly.
It's so weird because
It's the only time they let him.
he nails he nails it, and he nails his lines, and he's staring at
And part of
Skeletor.
it is because he's playing against Frank Langella.
Yes.
Probably, and they're in the same space.
Well, they're in the same space, and
Frank Langella's lifting him up.
exactly.
He's giving him something to work with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You will no longer stand between me and my destiny.
But I will. I told you it was always between us.
Oh, I ache to smash you out of existence. To drive your cursed face from my memory forever. Yes! Let this be our final battle.
It's also like the stakes are so much higher than they have been for the rest of the movie too. But like Frank Langella is playing so big that that it raises Dolph Lundgren up to that level.
Do you know what scene? I'm assuming you do because you've done your research. What scene they hadn't shot yet when they shut down production?
So they hadn't shot the final battle between He-Man and Skeletor. They'd shot in everything up to that point.
and
Interesting.
After, I think.
So the last 15 minutes of the movie they hadn't shot yet.
Yeah, and so that's why when it switches to that final battle, the lights change.
Yeah.
Oh,
And it
there's one spotlight that changes
spotlight.
from red to blue.
Yeah.
Because that was shot like a month later.
Yeah.
Oh my
And
God.
if
Yeah.
you look, I don't even think they ever show a good shot of Skeletor's face in that battle because I'm pretty sure
It's a stunt
it's
double.
definitely not him. But even still, I don't think they are very detailed with their makeup on the jaw
Well, for Frank Langella's Skeletor?
for Frank Langella's Skeletor in that battle. Like when the lights are dark,
Well, 'cause
everything after that's
It's
fine.
the same
it's-
problem
it's like-
anytime you do reshoots. It's just
Well,
like
when-
nothing's quite the way that it needs to be.
Yeah.
When we were watching it, I was like, oh, look, it's that lightsaber battle in Empire.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Except less.
But
is
yeah.
oh, the stakes were not as high. It didn't. I remember first watching that lightsaber battle when it's like
talking about He-Man, Peter.
God damn it!
I mean,
Son of a bitch.
I think
You're
honestly,
right.
I'm very proud of the He-Man talk we had. I think we've done the most we can honorably do.
That's true.
Yeah,
That
he's
character.
at his best when it's the final act of the film, and he gets to be He-Man finally
You know,
instead of just running around Earth.
His worst to me, he has one line delivery that I fucking laugh out loud every time. And if you just play that line knowing that it's going to be bad,
Yeah.
you will laugh. And it's this little moment where he and we'll cut it in to our thing, and I can get you guys the clip. But after he surrenders to Skeletor on the roof, and they're like, "Oh, He-Man, no, don't!" and he's like,
Tila, I have no choice. This is our fight. I don't want innocent people to die.
I swear to God, you're gonna watch it and you'll be like, "That's exactly how Frank sounded." What kills it is right after he says that, it cuts to Skeletor saying the next line of the script, which is Skeletor being like, "Well said, He-Man." So it's just doubly funny that he has this like compliment to like this weird line delivery where they must have had only one take.
And there was that moment too where after he says "well said," where I'm going, "Oh, Skeletor's totally going to order them to kill the people anyway." Now that he's got He-Man in chains,
He doesn't.
he doesn't. And then he comes up with an excuse of like, "Oh, we'll let them rot because like as long as he's there, He-Man's not going to escape." Where it's like apparently him being in chains doesn't actually contain him. Like if he decided he was done, he could just stop.
Yeah.
And the only thing that's keeping him at bay is the fact that they have his friends hostage.
So I love that rooftop scene. I love Skeletor slowly rising, and coming up, and
Like it's the orchestra pit.
I love that. I love how when He-Man starts just fist fighting with them,
Yeah.
there's so many guys that Skeletor is really not worried. He's just kind of like enjoying the fight in
Yeah,
front of him.
I do
It
like
feels
that.
like he's just like paying for entertainment right there.
Yeah.
And He-Man, it's a good fight, and he works his way up.
And you
then
can tell that like he's good at his job.
he's good
Like,
at his job. There's so many guys that most of the guys aren't even fighting with him.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting He-Man's just being He-Man. He can't stop, and it's a good little scene.
Yeah, I enjoyed that whole sequence. And anytime the action happens and we're not just hanging out with our Earther friends, just like with the whole thing, like bringing the cosmic key to the music store and then like having to deal with the police officer. It's like, that's where the movie loses me.
What about when they obviously spent half their budget on a Jimi Hendrix song?
Right?
I was waiting. I was like, let me wait for 30 seconds when they drop it because like they can't afford anymore, and it just plays throughout
just
the
plays
whole
the
background of that
whole
scene.
thing.
There's a reason Canon was mismanaged into bankruptcy.
No kidding.
It was, yeah. They probably spent more on that than they did on like the.
Was it Purple Haze? Was it?
Yeah, it
think
was
so,
Purple
yeah.
Haze.
Purple Haze.
Yeah, that music store. There's so much with music in this, and I don't know why. I know that the key makes musical sounds, but I don't really know the.
I liked the fact that it did make musical sounds, and the fact that Robert Duncan McNeil's character picks up on it because he's a musician. And he's like, oh, I remember the tone that takes you back to Eternia.
Do you like that he created the tune for Close Encounters?
Well, I mean,
oh yeah, but all right.
I did like that moment where the little guy, I forget what his name is, Gwildor was like encouraging him. And he's like, you don't have to be, you are who you are, basically.
Yes.
And that's good enough. Like that was
which harkens back to like the Saturday morning cartoon.
Yeah.
And it also really reeked of like the end of a character arc that hadn't been set up. Like if you gave him a no confidence thing or something, like he doesn't. No one has anywhere to start from. But what was I going to say? The key, and I was like half watching this because I've seen it so many times, like earlier today. The key is broken at the end, so they can't just get back using the key.
Yeah.
Does it break when they get to Earth, or does it break when Skeletor when does it break?
I don't remember.
Skeletor's red lightnings on their way after the doors open and before they pull it out.
So still in Eternia at the beginning.
Yeah.
So, but they still use it all throughout the whole movie.
Oh wait, no. Sorry,
it's on the roof.
No, sorry, no. It breaks to the point that he just has to punch in like a random coordinates to wherever just to get out of the firefight at the very beginning.
Yeah, where they do a blind jump.
And it was working then.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, it works then. It doesn't actually break. It's the fact that like once they jump through the portal, they lose the key because it ends up in the graveyard. So then they have to find it. And then at some point later on, I don't remember how it gets broken, but it gets broken to where it like the computer part of it, where it has the memory of like where the coordinates are, is broken. Where the key itself works, but they still don't have the actual coordinates to get back to Eternia.
And that's why they need him
to remember the tune
because he has perfect pitch.
Yes,
right.
Which is a thing that they bring up very briefly at in the sort of beginning middle.
I was kind of listening for that, and I didn't really catch them saying that he was perfect
when
pitch.
he's talking.
But
to
it's not just perfect pitch; it's memory. It's like instant, like
whatever. When he brings the key to his music shop buddy, they're like playing notes. And he's like, "Yeah, that's like a D sharp major kind of thing."
Yeah.
It's like, "Yeah, all right, fine, Mr. Perfect Pitch."
Mm-hmm.
And he does say later that he's like, "Yeah, I know all the pitches and I can remember them after I only hear them a few times."
Which I appreciate that whole like they fleshed it out a little bit.
Yeah.
And gave him something more to do than just panic about everything.
Yeah.
Also, did everybody notice that the only food that's available in this town is that fast food? Because like, he comes back to Courtney Cox's house.
He's just got that
and
bucket.
opens, and that's all that's like in the fridge for him.
She's moving.
Why? Yeah,
and she works there.
I do love that moment where he goes to nuke the chicken in the microwave. And they're trying to track down the key.
Oh,
and they're
like, that was fun.
There's suddenly some interference. We don't know.
I've never seen this before.
I've never seen it. We'll destroy the source. But sir, just destroy the source. Fine. And then the microwave just explodes.
Yeah. Why does he put stuff in the sink? What was that? He puts a bunch of shit
Lord fucking
in
knows.
like garbage
in
the sink.
Yeah, he puts like all the empty shit in the sink.
It's
I don't
such
know.
a weird
I think
little
he's just
moment.
cleaning it up. I don't know.
None of that house makes any sense for where you're supposed to be in the moving process.
That scene is so weird.
It's pretty weird.
Like this like antagonistic him and the cop relationship turns like buddy for a second.
Yeah,
and then not, and then
the
again.
cop turns into a child.
Why would you not make him a troublemaker that the cop has run into? The cop
Right.
doesn't know
Has a
him before this
relationship.
movie.
Yeah.
There's so many weird like things they didn't decide to do. It feels like two guys who have loved all of these other 80s movies, but don't know the culture really well, so didn't understand why they were so good. Like, all right, you have the authority figure. Let's make him like a cop. That's a really good authority figure.
Yeah.
But like there's no connection between him and these like music guys at all, or any of the other aspects. There's no reason. He doesn't do anything throughout the whole movie except shoot guys with a shotgun.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just like the hard-boiled detective who's like on loan from New York.
Yeah. Also, that shotgun that guy uses to protect his music store
is awesome. is the best, and every American should have one. I feel like we're getting really close to the fix, but before we get there, I'd like to go around and talk. Everyone share their favorite special effect.
Oh,
because this movie is filled with really, really fantastic practical effects.
Yeah.
If you guys want, I'll go first.
Go for it.
My favorite is when they first get to Earth and they kind of land in the pond, and Gwildor clears his like ears or gills or whatever, and he like holds his nose and like blows, and like water shoots out of his ears, and it's like a weird, like you don't expect it at all. And it's a really cool combination of like surprise and delivery and execution for like a really simple special effect.
Do you have one? I got to think about it.
I really liked some of those moments where they had like the holographic little image that would come out of
above the key.
Well, above the key is cool, but there's one where what's her name? Evelyn is like holding out a thing.
Yeah.
Where she shows him what the key looks like when he's got like the truth telling collar on.
Oh, yeah.
And actually, that whole scene is actually pretty great. Now that I think about it,
the effect on his voice
is really cool. And also when they unplug him out of it and he snaps out of the trance that he's been in the whole time, and he freaks out about it, is really cool because he plays it so calm when he has it on. And then like he doesn't remember what happened. Like that whole area is pretty cool to me.
That's probably a credit to just him as an actor.
Oh, that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is.
But it is a cool effect, the hologram. All of the hologram stuff. Whenever Skeletor is giving like a proclamation, that's cool.
Yeah, all the cosmic key stuff is great. I mean, I'm a sucker for the makeup. I feel like even with like the henchmen guys, like they're made up enough to look alien, but not enough to where like they can't speak.
Yeah.
So there's another one with one of the henchmen, which is like the lizard guy wearing the mask, where his
neck is
his neck breathes,
love that.
which is the actor blowing into a bladder.
Really?
Like when the camera panned to him, and his neck just sort of expands and contracts a little bit.
Which he was too expensive to survive past the halfway point of the film.
I think that's exactly what it was.
And also, the actor probably couldn't breathe and operate that at the same time.
Also, I don't think we give that guy credit for really pulling off like this lizard move to it. Like he really like I don't think of that an actor when I think of that character.
Yeah, no, he's really solid.
I think my favorite is probably, I would have said Frank Langella's makeup, but if you get too close, it looks real bad.
Yeah. Especially the nose.
There's a couple. Yeah, the nose is tough.
The nose doesn't hold up in HD.
Yes.
Yeah, no.
Or just D. If you're really close, you got to light him properly for it, and they fucked that up a couple times. I think also with his makeup, you notice his mouth is open the whole movie. Like he has to redub all his lines because his mouth is open, he can't close his mouth
so you can see the fangs.
Right.
He's got like the
that was also the same problem with Beastman, and they had a problem with him drooling into his costume and actually making it heavier. God, so especially the jaw piece just kept on like falling off or like not completely closing.
Apparently, Beastman was originally supposed to speak.
Yeah,
does he speak in the comic?
No.
Oh
no.
Not in the movie, anyways.
His mouth prosthetic was like way too big for him.
Yeah,
I think my favorite effect is just the key prop.
The key prop is really cool.
The projection thing it creates is awesome. It's like it's got hints of like Raiders of the Lost Ark ending, but the key itself, it's so unique for what you would think to make a key.
Well, the way like all the little blade things move,
the way the blades move, and it opens, and then all the buttons are around the sides, and it's like they don't act with it properly a lot of the time. Like they don't really act like they're really hitting stuff.
Yeah.
But the key itself is pretty cool.
And most of the time, Skeletor is just cradling his, just like hanging out.
It's a good size.
It's got an arm strap.
Yeah.
So there were 3 of those made, and they broke all the time. So every scene that had the key, which is like most of the movie, there's a props guy just waiting there, probably fixing the one that was in the scene before it, and just getting ready to swap it out whenever the next one broke. Because there are only 3 made, they're now worth like $12,000 a piece if you can find them at like auction or whatever.
Of course,
so. That's so low for only 3.
I know.
Well, I mean, we're talking about Canon Films Master of the Universe here. It's not like
Say where are those super fans at?
If someone if some dude at Pinewood wore a prosthetic nose for the original Star Wars, it goes for $50,000.
So we ready to get into the fix a little bit?
Yes, I'd like to make a asterisk with fixes, and I want to hear everything everybody has to say, but I think you got to work with the shitty budget Canon had. Like, obviously, the whole thing should take place on Eternia. That would be great.
I mean, we're working them with $20 million as opposed to the $4.5 million that they set up for the sequel.
Right. Well, I'm just saying, like I feel like all of our fixes would be like, oh, lose the Earth stuff, which is so what they should do. But obviously, if they had the money, they would have done that too.
Right.
But yeah, if you have other fixes, I want to hear everything everybody has.
So I have a proposal that actually keeps part of Earth in.
Oh, okay. Does anyone have like a full movie fix? I have stuff that I think they should have done differently.
Yeah, I think if we go around and talk about our individual fixes, and then go in, and then we can do like a writer's roomy kind of thing.
Right on. Okay.
And break the story.
Yes. So do you want to lead us out?
Sure.
Peter?
So here's my overall concept, and sort of working within the parameters that are already set. The movie kind of starts off the same. Skeletor's like clearly won the war. He-Man and friends get sent to Earth by whatever mechanism. It can be the key. It can be Skeletor is just like, you're at Earth now. Whatever. It doesn't matter. He ends up meeting up with Courtney Cox and her boyfriend still. And Skeletor decides that He-Man has the potentiality to like come back to Eternia. So he sends people to go get him. Kind of the same way. We're cutting all of the parent stuff, I think, right?
Aww.
She's just like Joe Schmo, regular teenage girl and boyfriend. Boyfriend is clearly the sidekick. We're not going to spend that much time with him. He plays songs, whatever. The whole arc that I want to work towards is they end up back in Eternia, and she is like way more competent than she should be.
Okay.
And she eventually, like, He-Man eventually gets like the shit beat out of him, and he's like down for the count. And towards the end, at the kind of the climax of the movie, she picks up the sword.
Oh, I love it.
Oh, all right.
And she becomes She-Ra.
All right.
Yep.
And then it's like this like empowerment thing of like, we're once again 4 white men fixing feminism on film. So that's our thing. We're practically
definitely Frank's thing.
No, it's Frank's favorite thing. But that's like the twist. That's the whole point. You have to go to Earth in the first place. Is you have to like find her, and she is the proverbial Rey from the new Star Wars movies.
Okay,
that like gets guided along. So we can still see things through her eyes, but she's actually the protagonist of the film.
I have questions.
Sure.
Not.
I probably don't have any answers.
No, not poking holes. Just She-Ra is the He-Man love interest, like the female?
I don't know.
So I've done some research on the fly.
Great.
She's the daughter of the sorceress.
Oh.
Okay, but then what's her relationship to He-Man?
I think they have more like a sort of sibling kind of dynamic.
They have a Sam and Diane thing?
No. I think it's like
they have a Jamie Cersei kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like that. It's sort of like it's like a Mulder and Scully kind of thing.
Okay.
So it's sort of like
we're maintaining sexual tension for 8 years.
Yeah, admiring coworkers kind of thing.
Okay. Right. I like that. I like that fix.
I had a different idea, but I kind of want to add to yours.
Say go for it.
So instead of He-Man escaping to Earth, I want him to completely lose the battle at the very beginning.
Yeah.
He gets his sword taken away.
Yeah.
Gets turned back into Prince Adam and then is banished to Earth.
Okay.
So his whole thing is trying to fit with his sidekick.
He is a regular guy with big jacked bodyguards from another dimension.
And like the whole theme becomes sort of back on top, like building on top of yours, believing in yourself without the help of other external powers powering you up. He has to figure out as Prince Adam how to sort of be He-Man without his normal power set.
Okay.
And in the original story of He-Man, the power sword was actually split in half. Skeletor had half, He-Man had half. And becoming Master of the Universe was combining the two halves of the sword into the power sword, and that's how he originally became He-Man.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of makes your thing actually doubly cool, where they both get different halves of the sword.
Yeah.
She becomes She-Ra, he becomes He-Man, and then they combine the swords to finally defeat. I want to keep Skeletor as terrifying as much of an existential threat to the universe as he is in this movie.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm sure we can write some reasons why why Skeletor sends assassins to Earth to go kill him. Maybe the sorceress is trying to figure out ways to get him back, or it could be that Man-at-Arms and his sidekick have to do things in Eternia to try to get Adam back to fight Skeletor as he.
Yeah.
Oh well, I just had. Well, no, I had. Well, so Connor's idea was pretty much mine because when I was watching the first 5 minutes, I'm going, if you were going to do like a Thor movie in the 80s, this is kind of what it would look like.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking a lot of Kenneth Branagh's Thor, where it's like he loses Mjolnir in the first act. And the idea of like,
I didn't realize
he
that.
has to figure his shit out as kind of, I mean, still like he's jacked, but like he has to learn how to do everything.
He's lived his life as a warrior, but yeah.
Yeah. So, and I like that idea. But also, are we doing this movie is going to be released in 1987 or is it going to be released in 2019?
Why? What changes?
Because I'm thinking of when you were talking about Man-at-Arms and his daughter having to deal with shit on Eternia. I was thinking of the Battlestar Galactica thing where you have the stuff that's going on with the fleet, and then you have the stuff that's going on with Michael Hogan's Colonel Ty, like leading this like underground resistance on a planet and having to like make weird, hard decisions and stuff, like having shit like that. So like I would just be like, let's just make Michael Hogan Man-at-Arms, but if it's 2019, I don't know.
So let's try and do this in 2019 because there is actually a He-Man movie proposed to be in production right now for 2021.
Yeah, we'll see.
Well, that's tough.
They announced their He-Man 2 days ago.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
And it's not who you would think.
Robert Pattinson.
No, well, that's the Batman.
That's the Batman. Well, but so what production house is going to be responsible for this one? Because that's the other thing too, is that informs very much not only budget but like the feel. Like, because if it's a canon film, then it's like, okay, this is being done by Blumhouse in 2019. So like think about how that affects the general story and tone.
I believe canon was absorbed into MGM.
Interesting.
Because Canon's back now
as a label.
Yeah.
Oh,
I forget what just got released as a Canon film.
No, I'm sorry. It's Sony. Sony 2021. Noah Centineo has been tapped to play He-Man.
I don't know who that is. I'm sorry.
Let me show you.
This is going to be great for a podcast.
I know, right? This guy. He's the star of a
that?
Netflix movie.
Yeah, I don't know.
Called I forget what movie he was in.
That's He-Man?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he was in the Netflix romantic comedy film To All the Boys I've Loved Before.
Oh.
He's going to be in the upcoming Charlie's Angels and the sequel to All the Boys I've Loved Before.
Okay. I mean, it's kind of sounds like they're going to kind of play it safe and do like a middle budget type of deal.
I think so.
Yeah.
But like it's not a huge property anymore. Like it's a nostalgia heavy property.
It's totally, yeah.
But I think if we're doing it, I mean, Chris Hemsworth is kind of the perfect.
Yeah,
but
we're basically
Thor.
we're orbiting this Thor
yeah.
movie with these fixes. So
I think
it's
you
a
have to
little
do
tough.
something.
But
I think Prince William, at least the
Adam,
Jesus Christ,
Prince Albert.
Yeah, Prince. He's more cocksure than most other princes.
God damn it.
So I think the character of He-Man and Prince Adam, at least as far as tone, where he differs from Thor, is that Thor is very he does have that arrogant streak to him, which I don't think that, at least based off of what I've seen, Prince Adam has.
Yeah, no.
So I think that if you make sure that you focus on that part of his character where he's not like the reason why he lost his power isn't because he's a dick. It's because he fought a great battle and he actually lost, and like that's what he has to wrestle with,
Right?
As opposed to his own like searching for
His
his
own
inner
hubris.
self and like
Well,
Elizabeth
I mean,
bullshit.
he
Well,
does.
it's like that, not only that, but he lost a great battle with the power sword,
Yes,
and now he doesn't even have that.
yeah,
But he should lose it because of himself somehow. Like there needs to be a thing. Doesn't need to be a dick.
no,
But there needs to be some trait that he didn't have. If we're gonna do the growth thing,
Well,
It's because he was over relying on the sword.
yeah,
Because he
Okay.
because what he believed in as like a servant of Eternia was the power of the sword, not necessarily the power of himself to wield it.
So all right, let me give you one. Let me take these fixes and
synthesize,
keep it going with it. So what I really wanted to do was make the I have the power moment actually matter and like you feel something. So what you do is you have him lose that battle at the beginning. First of all, you build out the battle so you actually see some combat and you get to see He-Man in all his glory.
Yeah.
You see the invasion a little bit more. You could play with it and like make it seem bigger than it is, kind of. I'm thinking like the ending battle in New Hope. You never really see more than like 2 ships at a time, but they make it feel like there's a whole dogfight. That kind of thing. So he loses his half of the sword. He becomes Prince Adam, and Skeletor basically has him at his mercy and like banishes him or does what you say, where he casts him out. But before he does, he takes away his voice. So he can't talk. So even if because he has to say the words to become He-Man.
Right.
Oh, shit.
So he loses even that. So he's getting sent to Earth without the ability to talk as Prince Adam.
That's
but
actually
as he's going, maybe he he grabs the sword at the last second. So he has his half of the sword, but he can't do anything with it because he can't talk. So then he meets Courtney Cox and he has to you get the whole movie is him trying to explain all this heavy exposition, and you get to still cast Dolph Lundgren because that way he doesn't talk the whole fucking movie.
I want a moment where she hands him a pad of paper to write down,
and he makes all these symbols.
It's like hieroglyphs that you can't read.
Yes, that would be so good because you think you see him writing vigorously, like he's gonna fix the problem, and he turns it around and it's just complete gibberish. Oh man, that would be so good. But yeah, then you have, because Skeletor lost his half of the sword and he has to go get it back, and suddenly the 2 halves of the sword become the MacGuffin. You don't really need the key thing at all. And then you have, like what you were saying, the Resistance, like Men at Arms, who you can show in that opening battle is secondary or not getting listened to. Now has to lead, and then he goes on a mission to get He-Man. He wants to go alone. His fucking daughter tags along without him knowing. So suddenly he's got this weird thing with his daughter that he doesn't get along with. And now they're on this submission to find him.
Right.
Yeah.
And that way.
Or they get along, but he wants to protect her.
Yeah.
Because they just lost. He's like, listen, I can't, we've lost everything. I can't lose you too.
That kind of thing.
And she's like, Dad, you have to trust me. That I'm capable of dealing with
And then
this.
you have some arcs, and then you can have Courtney Cox. But
that's why he sends the assassins to go get the other half of the sword so he can do so he can have the power.
Well, and then they all get back together. They defeat the assassins, and then they decide that they have to get back to Eternia because the sorceress is the only one that can give him his voice back.
But also, yes, that, or they think that's the only way.
Right.
Courtney Cox's boyfriend gets murdered, so now she has she has no reason to stay on Earth, and she's got a vendetta and is involved in this.
Oh,
fight.
I was gonna turn him into Orko at one point, but that's cool too.
Whatever. Just he has to
same
get
difference.
Out of the way. So, but then you have that moment where she picks up the sword and she becomes her own thing. And when He-Man gets the sword, it's you would think there needs to be some sort of undoing spell to get his voice, but he straight up does Caesar in Rise of the Planet of the Apes, where he just wills himself to talk.
That's cool.
In this heavy moment,
Yeah.
And he screams it, and there was just no sound for a second. It goes completely not even ambient sound.
Yeah.
It just goes dead silent for a second as everyone in the room hears that. And I think that's.
I like it though.
Yeah.
It's so much more straightforward, but
Yeah.
at the same time, we've given arcs to almost everybody.
By honestly doing less. It feels like there's going to be less involved.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that cuts the in the invasion of the town by Skeletor.
Yeah.
Which is arguably the best part of Masters of the Universe.
No, I don't. I think you can still have that whole scene. I think that whole scene could basically play out.
Or it's
same way.
the assassins keep trying to go get the sword, and he's like, "Fine, I'll fucking go get it myself."
Well,
oh yeah, and then he brings the sword with him.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, there should also be cool ways to give He-Man character moments that don't involve talking. So you can have a thing where Skeletor locks in on He-Man, opens a portal, sends the assassins in, and then He-Man, you see the whole fight scene where he's Prince Adam fighting these assassins. He kills them all cleverly because he's not strong. And Skeletor,
he Home Alone's it.
yes,
Yeah.
and Skeletor's waiting on the other end of the portal for them to come back. And He-Man just throws one of their heads through.
Yes!
And it lands at
That's
Skeletor's
cool.
feet. And you get no dialogue, you get nothing, but you suddenly feel so much more their resentment towards each other. And these little they're communicating without being in the same space.
But it's got to be circuits. It's got to be circuits coming out of the head because he can't kill anybody.
Oh yeah, it could be a robot. It could be whatever. Yeah. But then you do that kind of stuff. And then he loses assassins, so that's why Skeletor has to go with his crack troop guys.
Right. Yeah.
And do all that.
It's such a better movie. I want to.
Yeah.
I want to. Oh,
Yeah.
it's my favorite sound effect stuff like that. Oh
Yeah.
yes,
Why isn't this a thing?
the sound of birth of an idea.
Yeah.
And then do you do the thing where Skeletor is Skeletor the whole time, or do you like melt the face off the way they do sometimes?
No.
I
I think
keep
he
him-
needs to be Skeletor the whole
Yeah.
time. Like they can allude to the fact that like he looks like this because of He-Man or whatever.
You know what he should have with him? He should have like the melted remnants of his face behind
Oh,
glass,
God.
like in a little like canvas to like remember, and you see his reflection on the
Yeah.
skin face.
or maybe he's like plot D is like he's got one lackey that keeps on trying to make him a face, and he keeps on trying to put it on, and it just doesn't work.
That feels like a Hook Smee thing, right?
Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Or he keeps on like screwing it up somehow.
and you can work in another one of the villains that way too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
Like, yeah, they all can't go because one guy has to stay behind and make him a face.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and he has like the Darth Vader like private moments of like trying to get his old face on, and
Right.
it's just not
I
fitting. and
love
and
this,
it rips
yeah.
and certain.
And then I feel like the way that guy's got to die is Skeletor kills him himself by
Yes.
like ripping his own, not to wear, but just like to
Yeah,
take his
just-
own
yeah.
face off, and you don't really see
Let's
it.
see
but-
how you like it. Yeah.
I love how you went with the classic. Yeah, I'll get you next time, He-Man.
He-Man.
So I take it
Yeah.
that means we're going to lose Gwildor then.
Please.
I would love to lose
Yeah,
Gwildor.
we don't need.
Poor Billy Barty.
What happened in this period of time where having the small obnoxious sidekick like comedy relief everybody thought that was a good idea?
The theories sound, because if you have this bumbling tiny little like weirdo, it makes He-Man look cooler and suaver.
Yeah.
And it kind of works, but it's just weird for this movie, and it doesn't add enough to it, and it feels so tonally.
It doesn't
different.
age well.
It doesn't age well, and it's so goofy. It's like a Jar Jar Binksy thing when it
Yeah.
should be like he feels like he should be like the Yoda guy, or like
Right.
the wise, all-knowing older figure.
They do interesting things with him in that they show that he is definitively not human. You
Yeah.
know, like,
Yes, they
because-
call him something. They call him like a different animal.
but he also
species.
thinks he doesn't think like a he doesn't think like a human. Like he says like his species are a trusting species,
Yeah.
and like we became the greatest lockmakers in Eternia because people kept on fucking us over.
Yeah.
And he like thinks with his stomach, and he I love when he pulls the gun on everybody. He's like, I am doing some serious work here.
Oh, like an
Yeah.
actual 45.
Well, no, he pulls the detective's gun and like shoots it in the air
Yeah.
during that
Right.
protracted
Yeah.
weird wrestling
Oh,
scene.
that whole,
Is that when
yeah.
he has sunglasses on and a little pimp hat? Or is that-
That's after that, but it's during the battle of the music store.
Oh,
So like
yeah.
that's going on out there. Leela, stops doing guard duty and goes out to help He-Man and Man at Arms, and the detective tries to wrestle the gun away from
right.
Captain
right,
Paris.
Right.
Yeah.
Lieutenant-
Tom Paris.
Tom Paris. I don't know.
He was lieutenant, and then he was demoted
I
to
gave you
ensign.
5 minutes.
And then eventually, like way later than they should have during that wrestling scene, he shoots in the air. He's like, guys,
Yeah.
I gotta focus here, and that's when Courtney Cox steals the key.
She
And that-
steals it and then goes into the
She steals the key because
She thinks her dead mom, is in the alley.
who we
Yeah.
haven't seen before. So
Yeah.
we just
We
got
saw,
like
there's a
there's a
picture,
picture?
of them,
Oh, okay.
and that's it.
yeah, that's the moment where they kind of lose me. Where Courtney Cox goes from being a somewhat competent helper of He-Man to just a pure damsel.
But that's
in
the
distress.
thing. They don't ever decide whether or not she's being hypnotized or if she's just being lied to convincingly.
Yeah.
Because if
I think
she's
they
just
want you to
being-
think that she's just being lied to convincing, because
but
it's
that's
just like,
the
oh,
pro-
it's
you
my dead mom.
Shouldn't
And
think that because it's so obvious of
Yeah.
a lie.
Well, and she's so competent for the rest.
Yeah.
For the rest of the movie, that
And
having
no one,
her,
yeah, that should have been like the low point of a character arc where
Yeah.
she fucks up again because of something that she's lacking that she needs to now get, but they
Right.
don't come back to that at all. So
yeah, and then she just gets the whatever it is on her leg
ugh,
that we
yeah.
never explain
it's
away.
So gross.
Yeah, that will not be in our
No,
movie.
I liked it.
I like the effect
I'll
of
do
it.
that. Let's have that. Tom Paris gets that hole all over his body and dies.
Great.
Or
turns into a raisin.
or you do like a Bucky thing where you think that he dies and then he just becomes Orca for the sequel.
See,
Who's
that was
Orca? Which
so
one's that?
Orca's like the floaty mage dude where you only see his eyes. He's got like a wizard hat on.
Oh,
and
he's
like a big scarf.
Yeah, he looks like a heartless.
Yes.
Yeah, like do that, because then like you get to
I was gonna make him like an Orca homage instead of his thing with like music. He's like an amateur magician.
Well,
Okay. Okay.
All right.
And he like has some degenerative skin disease now, and
So-
he's got to
alright.
just cover his whole body
let me
I can
let
get
me say
behind that.
this. Why wasn't Gwildor just Orca?
because they didn't have the rights to it.
So then
So they created a whole character because they didn't have the rights to Orko.
So are we assuming we have the rights to all this stuff in these fixes?
In 2019, yeah,
Yeah, in 2019,
I'm still casting Dolph Lundgren and Frank Langella in these roles.
that's fine.
That's great.
just a
That actually makes the She-Ra arc that much better.
Honestly, 60-year-old Dolph Lundgren looks
Also-
more like He-Man to me in my mind.
Yeah,
than-
did you see him in Creed 2?
I didn't see him in
I
Creed
didn't
2.
see
I
him
saw him
in
in Aquaman, and he was like, I was like,
Yeah.
oh shit,
He looks great in Aquaman.
yeah. But I think that adds to it a little bit more because then you're telling like a later in life He-Man story. It's not like he's lived as He-Man for 30 years,
Yeah.
and now he's lost everything.
And him and Skeletor have been fighting for that
30
long.
years. Yeah. Like I actually kind of like that angle of like an older,
So-
like Dark Knight Returns.
So
He-Man.
we are just making Hook.
well, yeah. I would like that if there was an original version that kind of got them in all their glory for people to look.
Right.
back
you
on.
mean
the
Masters of the Universe?
No. But I mean, like I feel like you could do Hook because even though there was a book for it, you had the Peter Pan from the Disney.
Well, you had the cartoon He-Man.
Yeah, but I feel like that's not enough to make a movie, a live action movie after the fact. Like
If it-
I
if
think
it
you
was-
need
if
to
it
bring it
was-
to live action, then bring it to where we're talking.
If it was stronger in the zeitgeist, probably. But I see your point.
Yeah.
Hmm.
If this movie that we're talking about now was good, and then we're making this new one now,
If they had made like at least a sequel to this movie,
yeah,
and maybe another one, or like the
Oh,
cartoon
God.
had like a longer run, or like a reboot in the 90s.
There was a reboot.
There were several
Yeah.
Masters of the Universe reboot cartoon series.
over the last.
yeah.
They think
Once again, Thundercast doesn't count.
the thing about He-Man is that it was so successful. Like it was $1 billion industry.
Why though? Why?
I have no idea. I wasn't alive
filled
for
a
it.
gap. I mean,
Yeah.
it was like a super macho cartoon where like you could make up the rules as you go.
It was probably also one of the first ones out of the gate after they deregulated
Yes.
the Saturday morning cartoon thing.
Yes.
And it was just, it happened to be first.
Right.
And everybody's like, oh, this isn't educational.
So then, isn't the charm the fact that there isn't a story and there isn't a movie, and even before a show, you just had all these crazy figures, and you could decide
at the
who was good,
beginning
who was
now,
bad.
but I feel like we've kind of
but now we
evolved from that.
But it was also the generation of like, I have these things and I'm telling these stories in my mind, but now I can see it on a screen
yeah.
for 7-year-olds.
Yeah.
Right, but you have to still decide. Like everyone played with the characters differently. Everyone gave the characters their own personalities.
Uh-huh.
Which is probably why it's not very good. Like when you give it something,
Anything,
on the screen.
yeah,
yeah. Because then
yeah.
you're just like, well, yeah, but that's not what I did when I had those
Right.
action
Yeah,
figures.
it's also the culture of the time, though. You know, like TV was like the primary, like broadcast TV was like the primary cultural driver.
Yeah.
So as a kid, you got to feel like you were participating in that.
Mhm.
And by the time we were, the age that the original He-Man generation was aimed towards, we had Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Thundercats, we had
Power Rangers.
Power Rangers was our He-Man.
Yeah.
Or,
Also-
or
and-
He-Man was our Power Ranger.
and Transformers had been re-released in the early
Yeah.
90s, and they were,
And Transformers was even a little before our time, too.
yeah.
Dude, I feel like kids, maybe I'm just an adult so I don't notice, but I feel like kids got nothing right now as far as that goes.
Oh, they got,
We're not tapped into it.
yeah, we're not.
But you feel like,
Well,
I feel like if I'm 30 in 1985, I know
Yeah.
about He-Man and the Masters of the Universe.
Yeah.
So
if I'm
But
30 in 1993,
so here's what they have.
It's Minecraft and Fortnite.
it's Fortnite. Yeah.
Yeah. It's changed. It's not
It's-
TV
it's-
anymore.
it's not
so
the
I
same
should
thing.
stop playing Fortnite.
You started?
No, what I'm saying is you're already tapped into the zeitgeist.
Yeah.
Oh. I played it when it first came out, and I won once. You know how it's like 100-man free-for-all?
I've never played
I won it
Fortnite.
once, and it's the fastest my heart was ever racing
Yeah.
towards the end of that.
But we
It's-
know it's Fortnite because literally every little kid knows all of those dances. And I
Yeah.
had no idea until
Yeah.
you saw it everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, someone mentioned flossing to me last night, and I didn't understand. What
Really?
Well, I realized after a few
Oh,
minutes later,
yeah,
but
yeah.
it took me a while to make.
You didn't know that's what it was called.
Well, I knew that, but I wasn't thinking that.
The
It's
connection
still,
hadn't
that's
been
still
made.
not what when you say flossing. That's not where my head
right.
goes.
And
for
that's how
first.
you know you're old and about to die.
Yeah.
But like the people that are making decisions about who makes movies
Yeah.
are people that are a little bit older than us that remember He-Man from back then. Same reason they made that Power Rangers reboot that we covered a few like a year ago.
which, by the way, I enjoyed. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah,
We talked about it on Fix.
Yeah,
Go back and
yeah.
listen to the episode.
Wait,
It was
that-
a lot of fun.
That was one of our first. This movie was supposed to be bad, but it actually turned out kind of good.
There's a handful of Fix-A-Flick episodes I've been waiting to see because I haven't seen the movie to them, and that's one of them. It's
Yeah,
like-
it's worth the hour and a half.
I also just thought of maybe you'll want to cut this out, but since we've done April Fool's episodes,
Yeah.
it's too late now. But if we all fix as if they made a Fortnite movie, just all the stuff that obviously would be in it, we just try to fix that fake movie.
That would require so much research on our
Yeah, I was
part.
about to
I
say.
think
Be-
no.
yeah,
I think we can make a 1-page Word document
yeah.
with like what happens in it, and we can make the connections of like probably the
Isn't
stuff.
there
that would suck.
actually a story underlying Fortnite?
I
think
know.
there is.
I've only played that multiplayer version.
So I feel like we've reached fixed.
I think so.
Before we go, for the Fix-A-Flick audience, and you guys can see if you guys can determine if you want to include this or not. Can you guys give us a little rundown about what your Give It 5 project is? Because Peter and I have already been listening. We're already fans. You guys have been on the pod multiple times, and we love you to death. And I am bound and determined to get the Fix-A-Flick family to migrate over to Give It 5.
All right. So do you want me to? I think I can.
Yeah.
Stop me
If you have the 1-sentence challenge, then
We actually completely forgot that. I recognize that like somewhere in the middle.
I think
but-
we should try that maybe at the end of that. Do
All
this
right.
and then
No.
So-
Well, give me the 1-sentence challenge for Give It 5.
So
Explain Give It 5 in a sentence.
Give It 5 is a podcast where we talk about the movies that have kind of fallen out of the zeitgeist, and we re-examine them and see like, well, should we have forgotten these movies? Are they really not worth keeping up to date with? And we sort of re-examine movies from, and there's two sort of genres of movies we'll go with. We'll go with like the nostalgic ones, like ones you grew up with that you stopped sort of paying attention to or remembering. And then we go through those diamonds in the rough, the ones nobody saw, but they were really good. And like people should be like visiting these movies and seeing them. So those are sort of that's kind of the gist.
Nice.
What have you guys covered so far?
Of the ones we've released at the time of recording, we did Strange Days, which is one of these movies that is so good and nobody saw it. It came out in '95, and it's like Cameron, Catherine Bigelow, Ray Fiennes, Angela Bassett. It's a great cast. Everything about it, like it blows your mind that you haven't seen this movie when you're watching it. And then we did Great Mouse Detective, which is the exact opposite, where everyone kind of saw it, but like it's one of those forgotten Disney movies.
Yeah, it's
where,
not
like,
the most beloved.
because
Disney
Little
movie.
Mermaid came out 2 years later.
Yes,
Right.
Little Mermaid sort of overshadowed it. So
Yeah.
so then we look at that again, and then we also did 2010, the year we made contact.
Which is technically a sequel to 2001. So most people, the first question is, why the fuck would you make a sequel
Yeah.
to 2001?
Yeah.
Which
But-
we make the
But
case
I-
for.
Yes,
Right.
we make the case for it. And I really liked watching that. It
So,
was
and
very
listening
cool.
to that episode, like that has made me want to go back and watch that movie that I didn't even
Yes.
know existed.
Yeah.
Honestly, like it's nice because it's not trying to be 2001. It's just a straight up like sci-fi
80s sci-fi
Yeah,
movie,
80s
yeah.
sci-fi
Yeah.
movie. It's good.
But yeah, that's the object. Like Peter, what happened to you with 2010 is kind of what we want to happen for most of the episodes.
Yeah.
Where people will hear, and either they watched the movie and didn't think anything about it, or they've never heard of it or whatever, and just at the end of the episode go, all right, I'll give it a go. There'll be a lot of spoilers in it at least. But
Well, we
like,
definitely spoil everything, but we ask everyone that the reason we are called this is because we want everyone to give these movies at least 5 minutes. See if it can hook you. See if it could, make you watch the other, 95 or 120, whatever it is.
Yeah. I dig it.
And our social media stuff better than I do, but
yeah, it's all it's where everything is the number 5. It's at Give It 5 Podcast on Twitter, at Give It 5 on Instagram, and then Give It 5 Podcast at gmail.com if you want to email us.
do we do the thing where we have both Gmails and we link one to the other?
We have both Gmails.
So
and
we
they forward to each other.
shot ourselves in the foot by doing
A
5.
number?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have both Give It 5 as a number and Give It 5 spelled out as
Nice.
Gmail accounts, and one links to the other so that
There you go. That's
you can't
smart.
get it wrong.
Yeah, I just
That's
bought it all
genius.
up so that we.
It's so dumb.
I mean, yeah, but at least now I don't have to worry about it.
Exactly. Yeah.
And we'll have links to all that information in the show notes.
The show notes.
No, yeah, and it's fun because there's less there's no real structure to it. It's just kind of like seeing where we go. There's been a couple we've done where it's been this huge celebration of the movie, and there's other ones where primarily me just like rants about why it sucks and like why, like it's fine that we like. There's a few, and I don't really want to spoil the ones we've already recorded and we haven't released yet, but there's a bunch of good ones coming up soon.
Yeah,
excellent.
Awesome,
well, I am proud to say that it's kind of a spiritual sibling to Fix a Flick. It's
a lot of it's inspired by you guys, and like
buddy.
It really like I mean, if you guys can do this.
Well, it's definitely in the Fix a Flick family. We highly recommend everybody go and give it a subscription. That's listening to the Fix a Flick
listen to
feed.
it. Give it 5.
Give it 5 minutes. Give it 5.
And this episode might appear in your feed.
Yeah. No. Are we teasing that? I thought we definitely were.
That was the plan.
Wait,
right?
No, it's much like Canon Flicks. Do we not have the rights
You
to
said
certain
that
things?
like I have to suck your dick.
No, I was trying to pose a mystery to the listeners, so they would have to go check your feed.
Oh, that's
out.
so much cleverer than all three of us.
Yeah,
us were being.
No,
I like the more direct thing. Go listen and give it 5 because it's a quality podcast with quality people, and they're worth your time.
Yeah.
So go do the thing. Matt, Frank, I love you guys. It was a pleasure as always.
Guys. This was fun.
Yeah.
And I apologize again for this movie.
No, I had a blast.
Yeah. I think everybody enjoyed it.
Thanks for being here for one of the last.
Don't say it.
Don't do it.
Because it's not.
Well, that's not one of the last episodes.
Not like this.
But it's one of the last episodes that we're all gonna be recording here in the detective agency.
That's true.
Mr. Peter is moving to Texas on me.
See, you're destroying the illusion for the audience because we're still going to be putting out episodes.
We're still going.
You guys are? I wasn't sure. Oh, that's
so
great.
we're still going to be putting out episodes. But
thank the sorceress.
We'll get to that.
You know, the TBD, but the formats might change a little bit. The release schedule might change a little bit. Doing guests with over a Skype connection is a little bit of a pain in the ass. So we may hear fewer voices than we normally have, but it'll still be me and Peter doing our thing.
It might just be an opportunity for Connor and I to catch up.
Exactly.
You might just hear Connor and I just like getting to be friends, like, you know.
Oh, me being better at calling people that don't live in the same city than I.
There you go.
But I appreciate you guys being here for that too.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
And everybody, good journey.
Good journey.
Good journey?
That's from the...
It's from the movie. It's from the movie that you just watched.
Oh, I missed that.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the show, remember to like and subscribe. Follow us on Instagram at NoFlixGivenPodcast. See you next time.